أن محمد عبده ورسوله خاتم الأنبياء ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وعبدك ورسولك محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أما بعد, alhamdulillah. You know, kind of disappointed that the Imam is not here, because I know you came out to see him, inshallah. And I'm in no way here to fill his shoes, because Imam is a special kind of personality. But alhamdulillah, you know, because of the circumstances in which Imam finds himself in, you know, he does a lot of lectures and he travels from one place to the other, and he felt, you know, he realized he was overbooked. And instead of just calling and counseling the lecture, you know, he sends me. He drops it right on me. That's the nature of the Imam. I'm going to do the best I can, you know, under the circumstances. But alhamdulillah, you know, the topic in itself is very encouraging and very inspiring. Why? Because we're talking about the companions of the Messenger of Allah. Outside the Messenger of Allah, we know we cherish and we understand very much so about the nature of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what it is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, like some scholars how they like to give it a sort of an analogous view, where they say that the Prophet was like the sun and his companions were like the moon, in which they borrow the light. You know, so the moon borrows light from the sun. One of the things that we find out is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in terms of his companions, you know, I find that, you know, according to statistics, he supposedly may have had approximately 134,000 companions. And in that, the companions were broken up into different, what I would say, classes and segments. You know, some, the outer and the inner circle. And this is a reality because of the nature of how situations, you know, transpired during that particular time, especially in the beginning of Islam. You know, and you find that even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it gives that honorable mention about those people who fought and those people who suffered and established Islam, you know, way before other companions had basically converted to Islam. The nature of the companions is that this is why the scholars would say they would be termed the Salafi Salih. You know, these are enacted terms. These are purposely coined and codified to say that these are the righteous predecessors. These are the successors. If any body of people are the greatest example for the embodiment of secession when it comes to the Prophet ﷺ. And we hear about secessions when it comes to other rulers, and historically kings and sons inherit the kingdoms and so forth, and we deal with secession. But this is a special kind of secession when you deal with the companions. The companions were a unique body of people, and they were so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to personally create the character within these, as He has done with all of us. But the nature of the companions, before we even get into the categories and different classes or different terms and different people that we deal with, different personalities. So let's deal with the type of people we're talking about in terms of the companions. Now we know the Messenger of Allah, he received wahi from Allah, revelation. He was guided directly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, he could foresee what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him certain glances of the unseen and so forth and so on. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, you know, he was directly protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The thing is that what effect did he have on the people that were around? And then, you know, you have scholars that have written books about, and I recommend these books, and I encourage you to read these books, because we read books about the companions, but there's other books that's out there by certain scholars that's written the men around the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when you hear that term, the men around, you're talking about the personalities, the type of men. And we must never forget the women around But sometimes, you know, we are guilty of negating the fact that the women play an extremely important role. Without them, you know, Allahu Alam, but we respected them and respect the establishing this deen, the way we see it today, and the way we practice today. It was the men and the women. And then you look at the companions, they came in all different sizes, they were different ages. You know, young, you don't hear about, sometimes you don't hear about the young. Most of the battles were fought by young, strong individuals, strong believers. And the thing is that you have to understand, and we can cite the heroics in the battles, you know, and how brave they were and so forth. Yeah. But we sometimes forget the other aspects, the morality, the principles that they abide by, that they lived under. And those principles according to Quran and the Sunnah. And you're talking about men who really attached themselves to the Messenger of Allah to such an extent that the belief took over. In other words, in one instance, in the beginning advent of the Messenger of Allah, they depended on the Messenger of Allah in all aspects and respect. And not that they didn't depend on him afterwards, but the fact that at some point faith took over individually. And we can see that in the personality of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And we can see the type of personality that Abu Bakr had during that time. And we can see that at some point, you know, historically, and historical data indicates the type of character that emanated from him, and that was Sadiq. And why do I say that we have to look at the personality? Because, you know, these people that we're talking about, these companions, were truly honorable, principled men with such an impeccable character that we can't even understand that today. And we can look at the condition that the world is in today, and the personality, so much corruption, so much lying, cheating, so much, say, inconsideration of human life. You look at these personalities, and you look at the personality that exists today, and one thing you can say is the honesty and their extreme, say, consideration about what they believe. They believed in it wholeheartedly with their hearts. And when you take a person like Abu Bakr, you know, a person, you know, who they said at the time, during the Messenger of Allah, during the time that he existed at that time, you know, a very soft, you know, character of Abu Bakr, but very close to the Messenger of Allah. And the Messenger of Allah, he said, you know, he said, you know, Abu Bakr, if it wasn't that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was his wali, was his friend, outside of that, Abu Bakr would be his friend. But it shows you the companionship. And you know, it's hard to find. And if you see that, because the example that we're given with the Messenger of Allah in the history is saying how strong these people were in terms of close to the Prophet ﷺ. They basically understood the message. And this is why during the time when Islam was not established, they were in Mecca, and they were being persecuted by the Quraysh. To such an extent, we have the first martyr in Islam was a woman, Sophia. And we understand, you know, there was no compromise. Now you have to understand, now when the Prophet ﷺ has made it clear that this first generation is the best generation, and this is why we look at that generation. Because you can see, when you talk about succession, you can see they continued without any deviation. They continued to follow what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had left them. They continued without changing any iota of the word and the practice in the Sunnah. And this is why today we practice Islam based on the hadith, the authentic hadith that these honorable men have conveyed to us. And we're able to look at these men. These men were human beings. They were flesh and blood and bones. But they were certain extraordinary characters to such an extent that we can take on those characters. We can say, some people say, well, how can I follow the messenger of Allah? I said, Salam, he's the messenger of Allah. Sometimes we do make those excuses. So especially when we're trying to command the good and enjoying the good among each other, and we pinpoint or we give nasiha to each other, and they say, well, I can't do that. We say, well, you have to follow the sunnah. You have to follow the messenger of Allah. So I said, well, he's the messenger of Allah. I can't do that. But then, this is why it's important that we understand the Salafi Salih, the righteous predecessors, because you can follow the messenger of Allah, but it's all narrowed down, and it's sort of like it's compact now. That these are men, common people from the desert, that you can understand. This is why it's a continuation. They preserved the word. You have Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, after the Prophet's demise. What happened? He was the Khalifa at that time. He was elected to be the Khalifa. His whole character changed afterwards. Because people misunderstood him. And they ridiculed him, because when the people, some of the people during that time after the Prophet's death says that we're no longer going to pay zakat. And Abu Bakr read up. He stood up. This is this meek individual that they knew, in the past. So they figured in that time that they can just basically, which amounts to treason. We're not going to follow this part of the Sharia. We're not going to pay zakat. And what did Abu Bakr say? He warned them. He warned them that if they didn't pay zakat, that he would go to war against them. Now these are Muslims against Muslims. Now this is a very important time for us to understand. Why? Because during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Munafiqun, they basically didn't make waves, because they knew the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was protected by Allah in that sense, and he was supported by Allah. That's why most of Mecca became Muslim, because they tried, they tried the Prophet ﷺ in every which way. You're the Messenger of Allah, we're going to see, so to say. We're going to see if Allah is with you. Against all odds. Against all odds. This is the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that exists today, if we adhere to it. If we adhere to it, because you can see the blessings. Now they had big problems afterwards, but they held it together. The companions, those companions were the glue. They were the glue to keep Islam intact. So alhamdulillah, so we today can practice it, to the best of our ability. But they said, they ridiculed. When they spoke about Abu Bakr, then they said he's like a female horse, or he's like like a she-camel or whatever, like something weak. But what did the companion tell the people? So you're going to find that Abu Bakr is a stallion among you, and that he's strong. You see, you can't underestimate the power of faith that comes in following this Islam the way it should be followed according to the Sunnah. Because these men took on the light of the Messenger of Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, had preserved that light within these people. And you can see that after the Messenger of Allah, because again, it was Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when the people, even Umar radiallahu anhu, refused to accept the death of the Messenger of Allah. But Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he looked at the Prophet, he kissed him, he came. And he recited the Quran. He recited the Quran about those who believe in the Messenger of Allah. He's no longer with us. He's a human being. He's gone. But those who believe in Allah is ever living. So this is the kind of spirit that comes from us as Muslims. If we choose to take on this task of following the Messenger of Allah, the Quran and the Sunnah, and following those predecessors that came afterward, we can take on the same character. And this is what we got to learn from, because we can always cite the heroics of the companions. But we gotta remember, in some instance, it's no longer entertainment when these things are cited to you. Because we can sit here and give lectures all day long, and you can hear lectures and you can feel good. Feel good. No, these are not feel good lectures. These are lectures that the Imam gives and scholars and so forth gives to rouse the spirit within you, that's in you, must resonate from you, so that you can take on the same guys as those that came before us. And you see the personality and respect to Abu Bakr. Why is he Sadiq? And you look at the term Sadiq, extremely, just extreme in terms of truthfulness, of righteousness, the highest form of haqq, of truth. We know that. We know when it came time to defend the Prophet ﷺ, in every instance, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was there. He was the one who accompanied the Prophet ﷺ in the time of the Hijrah. He didn't care. He laid his life on the line as others did for the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned him in the Quran. And this is the understanding that we have from these companions. And that's why when we look at these common men in the beginning we see here a man of such renowned riches as Abu Bakr sacrificed everything he had before he left. Before he left. And he was asked, what did you leave for your family? I left Allah and His Messenger. This is the kind of spirit that must resonate. This is the spirit that's available. Okay, you say you're not the Messenger of Allah, right? Naturally, we know you're not. But though the Messenger of Allah is Uswatun Hasan, he is the model, the exemplified example for all of us. So we are following the Messenger of Allah. You make 5 prayers a day, you're following. You fast in the month of Ramadan. You make Hajj. You do the best you can. You do good. You indulge in the halal, and you forbid in yourself from or abstain from the haram. You are following the Messenger of Allah. But don't be selective. Don't be selective in your practice, because the shaitan will then play with you on that. And that's why when it comes to point, because you get where people have it. We're people of habit. And the more we do things, it's easy for us to do it. The shaitan, he knows that. And that's why he's constantly trying to persuade us, to do the wrong thing. But if you're not totally involved, because you got to be totally vetted in this deen. It's not, you can't, in Islam, there's no half faith. Either you're totally ingrained and engrossed and you're totally embracing Islam, or you're not. You can't practice one part and don't practice the other. Then, because Allah requires you to follow Islam entirely, to embrace it entirely. And when you look at somebody like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, you'll see that. That's your example. You look at it. Now, one of the other things, the man, or there are men by the Prophet ﷺ who have been guaranteed Jannah. Now, can you imagine? You can imagine, I mean, we can deal with it on our level. Somebody's guaranteed riches. Somebody's guaranteed that they will be rich at one time, and you get wind of that. You would love to be among them people. You would love to make yourself attached and a companion of that person, so that maybe some of that riches can rub off on you. So what I'm saying to you is that we have several of the companions that will guarantee paradise. Now, what do you say? When you find this out, then you look at it and say, well, what is the reason? How is it that this person is guaranteed paradise? What is this person? What is this person about? What makes him a companion of the Jannah, Ashabul Jannah? What makes him? What did he do? So now what I want to do is now I want to research. What is causing this person and allowing this person to become part of the Jannah, guaranteed before he even dies, before he even leaves this world. So when we do, what do? We look at the practices of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and we can see the kind of person he is, a man that gave away his wealth in sacrifice. Do you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned about some of the companions that they considered others before they considered themselves? Can we practice that? And you know the story, especially during the time when they made Hijrah to Medina. And there, the Ansar community, Ansarullah, the community came and sacrificed their own dwellings and own properties and riches for the people who came from Mecca. And some of them didn't even have the means to do so. So what did they do? They considered others. They considered other people. And they sacrificed, even when they didn't have the means to do so. Can we practice these things? Is this our example? Yes. And when we look at this, this is the means to the Jannah. We're all trying to get there. But there's a way that must be understood. There's a way that we have to adhere to. And when you look at it, do you find in the presence of Abu Bakr that anybody can do something that is in contrary? Any of the companions, especially we deal with Umar radiallahu anhu, Umar ibn Khattab. You could not do anything outside Islam. You could not practice any bid'ah, any innovation, or even things that you got that some of the companions legitimately received from the Prophet ﷺ. But Umar radiallahu anhu was not aware of it. And because he was not aware of it, you had to clarify that practice. And he was no joke. And when we look at the Khalifa of Umar radiallahu anhu, we look at the time that he was the Khalifa, he had the most successful rule and reign of the Khalifa. Many things that we do today and is established today is because of Umar radiallahu anhu. And you look at it now, he was called Farouk. What is the terminology? From Furqan. The one who can discriminate and determine between right and wrong. These are traits that is necessary for today and beyond this time, because we've given up that particular consciousness. Because in this particular time and period we live in, we have become insensitive to wrong and things that surround us. We tolerate things that we shouldn't, and respect it, not enjoining or amr ma'ruf, to command the good, and to forbid the munkar. We're not doing that today. But when we look at the companions like Umar radiallahu anhu and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, we see that you could not do or practice anything outside Islam in their presence without them correcting you. And they did it by whatever means. But most people understood that they could not be in the presence of these strong and impeccable characters and companions and not correct themselves. So most people didn't even take a chance. Some did, some didn't. When Aisha radiallahu anha, when women came in her presence and she saw that the dress was outside Islam, she didn't bite her tongue. She said to them, "This is not the dress of a believer." That's what she said. Very strong words. You mean to tell me these indications, these rudiments of Islam determines whether we go to the Jannah or the Jahannam? Things that we don't understand, and that's why we have to take in consideration. And we have to reform ourselves according to these companions. These companions beforehand that fought, some way before Islam was established, the first ones to fight in the Battle of Badr. And they were special according to the Prophet ﷺ, to such an extent that even when they did something that maybe was a little off track in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ said, leave them alone. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them that kind of latitude because they fought in the battle of Badr. And they sacrificed. And then some of the desert Arabs, after Islam was established, they came to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ and said, we believe. But even the Quran revealed, say not that you believe, but say that you submit, because faith has not yet entered into your heart. And when you look at the tafsir, I look at the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said in that instance, the reason faith, that was said, is because they didn't suffer and they didn't struggle the way the companions struggled before they came into Islam. So they were not tested like the companions before them. So don't say you have faith. The ones that suffered and established Islam and fought in the battles, and some died before even Islam was established, some were martyred, persecuted to no end. You can't say that you're now coming into Islam and you're now taking on the guise of this kind of faith when you have not been tested like those before you. So this is important for us. Ibn Zubayr, that knight of Islam. And you know what? What you find among the companions, not only the companions themselves, but their connection to their families, their mothers and their fathers, were strong believers. And in that, they became the model. They were the mentor for the people and the children that they have established, that they have brought forth. And we know the mother of Ibn Zubayr and what she said about, you know, the things when he was going to fight. Now, Ibn Zubayr was no joke when it came, you know, in terms of after Islam. He was totally disenchanted with the Umayyad period during their rule. He was totally disenchanted to the point where he didn't even pledge allegiance to the Khalifa at that time. Why? Because these people didn't tolerate anything that they saw that was contrary to Islam. And they were ready to sacrifice their lives. Unfortunately, Muslims fought each other in certain instances in the battle of Jamal, in the camel, in terms of Ali radiallahu anhu. But they were there to keep Islam intact. And they were there to show that what the Prophet ﷺ had brought out from them. Because everybody, in respect to their companions, the Prophet ﷺ brought out certain characteristics of each of those personalities. You know, Abu Bakr was meek and humble and soft. And then when he became Khalifa, he became strong. Well, Umar radiallahu anhu was the opposite. Umar radiallahu anhu was strong during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you know, very persistent. But then when he became Khalifa, he became very soft. Just the opposite. And this is the matter. And these are the companions, you know, that we must understand fully. Just don't say companion. We can cite them companions, and so forth, and then don't understand the background of these personalities that we're dealing with. And this is why I wanted to involve not only their heroics, the physical heroics of them, but their personality, their love for Quran, and first and foremost, their love for Allah and His Messenger. No one can reach that level, but we can reach a level. You know, when you deal with certain personalities and they're strong personalities and you're around them, you may not be able to reach them, or you may be. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But at least you can reach a certain height. It brings out that strength in you. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, he said the sign of a good friend is like an oil merchant. An oil merchant. You ever go to the store where they sell oils and you go in and you smell all the different fragrance? Sometimes you leave out with that scent.